So we're getting kind of towards the end, but I wanted to take some questions from the audience. Are you comfortable with that, Jason? Can I?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, I've been rambling.
No, no, that's all right. Rambling's fine. That's we're interviewing you. You're not allowed to ramble. It's the whole point. But what do we got? Lindsay, why don't I haven't been watching the chat, but why don't you tell me what's the question? What's question number one?
Yeah, so the first question was from Kenzo. What tools or programs do you actually use to create art for 3D environments?
Right now I use Blender a lot. Blender is amazing. I hope everybody downloads Blender and tries it out. It's incredible. Blender became incredible in the last 3 years. I mean, it's always been incredible, but it was very hard to use, and now it's they redid the UX experience of working in it, and it's still free, still open source. It's loaded with tons of features that are all exist in other programs separately, but you can get them all under one program for free. I mean, it's amazing. And it has very similar workflows. So like for instance, Substance Designer is something that I have to use at work sometimes. And Substance Designer, is a texturing, material authoring kind of thing. But that's like kind of built into Blender. So it's like they've targeted things that people need and put them all under one roof. And so I always recommend Blender. I use it all the time. For sculpting, I actually like to sculpt in VR. I use Medium by Adobe.
Medium by Adobe. Right.
Yeah.
I just want to like point this out to anyone watching because I think it's super cool. You do a lot of your work in VR. Like that's kind of like how you be an environment artist now and a sculptor, I guess. Do you do both, sculpting and environment art, or just
Well, I mean, environment art, I don't do a lot of like landscape work in VR.
Okay.
I guess I do. I have. I shouldn't say that. I've worked on maps where I literally sculpt them on a table, like here's a mountain, and I pull it up, and so it is possible, but it's like for individual assets or something like that. There's nothing like being in 3D space with the object. Like it's just like removing that sort of awkwardness of gizmos and all that stuff. It creates some pretty I don't know, it just makes it it's such a cool opportunity to stand in a room with the thing you're making and be able to manipulate it and change the scale of it. Like if you're building a spaceship, you can just blow it up and sit in it while you're working on it.
Yes.
Like that's just irreplaceable power.
Right?
Like
Jason,
it's funny, not a lot of artists do that though. There's not a lot of artists in the industry who use VR. They just, you get so used to your tools that you don't think about changing them up.
Is this one of them? Is this a VR?
Oh yeah, that's a VR sculpture.
VR sculpture. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, Medium used to be made by Oculus, and then they sold it to Adobe, and it became a little more of a real tool. Not a toy. At first it was like a toy, like Tilt Brush, where it's like, oh, look at this, it's so cool, you can draw in space. But it's like, then now it's like a fully featured 3D tool. And it's like $30. Like if you have a VR headset and a PC, I would get it.
Yeah, maybe I will. All right, Lindsay, what else? Any other questions?
We have another question from Laurent, who was amazing and gifted like 10 subs while you were talking, Jason. So thank you so much, Laurent.
Thank you.
And his question for you is, what is your favorite peripherals for working with game art?
I don't know. What would an example be?
Is that like hardware?
Sure.
Or like...
Oh yeah, maybe like what kind of hardware do you enjoy using?
Or maybe, I don't know. If Laurent, if we're getting the question wrong, feel free to ask it again. But
I mean, like I said, I'm a PC user. I use a Surface Book actually to do most of my art that is not in VR. And then I have like a desktop rig that I use for VR. And I also have I use an Oculus Quest 2, and I just plug it in directly and use the link cable so it acts like a regular Oculus, and then that's where I do like all the VR sculpting and stuff. But I don't I'm not particularly tied to software because I was never trained in it. I never had any training in Maya or 3D ever. I just had to teach myself all that stuff. And I think that a lot of it came from, just working on like a project like CodeSpells. I had to learn a lot about modeling for CodeSpells because my projects before that were they just didn't involve a ton of 3D modeling. It involved a lot of sculpting and painting, but it didn't. And so, I'm more tied to the concepts of it than the software. So if somebody was like, oh, well, you can only use this now, I'd be like, I'll figure it out. If it's got vertexes to pull around, okay. Like you just kind of learn the principles of it are more important than the software itself, because software gets outdated, right? Like look at 3D Studio Max. It's like slowly fading away in people's minds. And it was once the pinnacle of, especially for games, it was huge. Oh, I see. Computer mouse. Oh God. I got, like I said, my VR headset right now is Quest 2, but I don't have any particular obsession with peripherals. I use my good old MX Master Logitech mouse.
Love it.
I will stand by. I love this thing actually, but I don't have a special monitor or anything like that.
Jason, I just really, really appreciate you doing an interview with us. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for being okay with being live. I know it could be like weird, but.